Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Today we are taking a look at Season 3 Faction Duel, the Capital War. This is the end of the season fight where you are fighting over the spice for the factions. As you can see, there's a little bit of time before the fighting actually starts, and everybody is already surrounding the what we call the mud area around the capital. So you have a lot of attackers and defenders. We are invading 31, so all the red is actually the defending side, and we clearly just about outnumber them if you're looking around the exterior here. There are a lot of players that do wait until right before the fighting starts to jump in, and there are some big players from the other faction that have decided to jump in and start surrounding the capital. And this could be a good thing if you have a lot of really strong players, but if you don't, you can be picked apart pretty quickly if the opposing faction has other players that may have teams that are really strong. So just be mindful of that. One of the best ways to do this is to make sure you have probably about 40, 50, if not 100 or more bases that are ready to go to jump in with you. So it's not all focus fire on just 3, 4, or 5 bases. But if you have 100 bases all around the Capitol building, that will help your team survive a lot longer when you start to invade. But this strategy can be used for both invading and defending if you're trying to not only get control of the Capitol and cannons, but in Season 3, you have these missiles surrounding the Capitol that you can take control of. So there's 4 different ones, and the alliances can take over the missiles and then launch them at the enemy team. So there are several different points of interest in these server wars, which you do have to try to strategize who's taking what, but you're including 4 other servers along with you. So the strategy would be to give each server a designation of which cannon, and then the alliances, you want to have your strongest alliances taking over the missiles so you can launch those to take out the enemy faction teams that are in the capital area. Okay, so jumping ahead here a little bit in the fight, you are going to see a lot of bases start dropping in here just before the fight starts. And again, this is one of those things where you should be coordinating with the other servers and giving them basically a time that you want to all jump into the mud together and surround the capital. This will help ensure that you are taking up as much space as you can around the capital. Everybody's spreading out, and you're not just having people drop in 1, 2 at a time. But if you have 100, 150 players all drop in at the same time, say 10 minutes before the fight starts, this will help get you in good position and get a lot of bases around the interior bases. So the enemy has to take a lot of time to burn through to get their way, to work their way up. Because the marches do take a longer time. When the war actually starts, the march speed in the mud and the contaminated land is drastically reduced. So here you can see me, I'm trying to find a spot, and it's a mix between the sandstorms and everything else. It just becomes very difficult. You'll see later on that they have the sandworms that are popped up out of the mud too, so they're dropping traps. And you can only drop traps if it is your server. So if you're in another server, you can't be dropping sandworm traps. But if you are defending, you can drop sandworm traps, and they'll populate inside of the contaminated land. And they'll do 2 things. 1, they'll teleport bases within a certain area, depending on the size of the worm. But then 2, unless the worm's defeated, they're just going to take up a ton of space inside the contaminated land. So this could be a strategy you could use. Okay, so talking about the fight itself, you'll see there are sandstorms everywhere, and it is nearly impossible to see anything because of the animations, especially when you're zoomed out or trying to teleport your base in. I just decided to jump into the mud to try to send some teams to the capital, and as soon as that happens, people see a little low-level base, and they want to go hit it because they think, okay, this is an easy base to clear out. And of course, that is the case with this account because I just don't have the firepower to defeat these guys. So this is a reason why a lot of people will run no defense on their walls, because if you are unlucky and you have some big players drop in around you, they're just going to hit you continually and burn your base and teleport you. So if you were trying to save troops, just taking troops off your wall, because you may even be sending out 2 or 3 teams anyways to either the cannons or capitals, and that may be a strategy. Just send out your strong teams, don't put anything on the wall, and if you get burned, you lose some troops that are in your drill grounds, but you're not losing thousands and thousands every single hit. The flip side of that is if you just saw an enemy send out 3, 4 marches, that may be an indication you can send some of your troops over and burn their base. So if they're not focusing you, or maybe if they did focus you, you can try to hurry up and get a couple hits in before your base is teleported and going to get yourself some points for the actual faction duel. And this is where the problem became more apparent with trying to teleport in with all the sandstorms. It's so hard to see, even with the mapping to where you could see the red spots and where you can teleport in. It's just so visually cumbersome to try to navigate, not only between the dead bases, the sandstorms, maybe there's some mines in here. It was just so difficult to teleport in and find a good spot with all this stuff. Eventually the sandstorms started to die down and it became a little easier to teleport in. But the first 30 minutes of this fight were visually just exhausting. And of course, it was pretty intense on the game itself. So a little bit of lag, and it just made it a little bit difficult to play for a little bit. And as you can see here, I ended up teleporting to the outer part of the area. And if you are outside of the contaminated land, you can still send attacks. You can attack anybody. You can attack the capital, the cannons. It doesn't matter because you can only attack others in contaminated land. So it's essentially treated like a non-war day, even though there is a war going on. So you don't have to worry about shielding up, especially if you're on the outside. You can send attacks and not worry about somebody jumping out and trying to hit you. You're only going to be attacked if you are in the mudded area, contaminated area, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see here, it is just insane the amount of graphics and the different attacks going on. The different icons there, those are the protector rallies or the protector actual attacks, which are the different troops that you get when you're in Season 3, and they're Season 3 exclusive. So they don't work outside of Season 3. So if you have them, burn them. There's no reason to hold out them past this season. Another thing I wanted to point out real quick, trying to get to the duel, the capital fight, is a little bit cumbersome. You have to go to Capital War on this page and then go over to the coordinates you can see up at the top. And I was just opening up the boxes here. But you have to click through a lot of screens to go to it. They don't make a quick access icon like I feel like they do a lot of other wars. So you have to go through a few tabs, which is a bit of a pain, especially when you're maybe jumping out of the war zone and trying to jump back into it if you're trying to use the war zone transfer to get out of a fight, something quick like that. So I hope they change that for the future for other war zones to make it a little bit easier. And when you're trying to give instructions to other servers and alliances you're trying to coordinate, the more people that know how to easily navigate to the server where the war zone duel is, we'll see a better turnout for members actually going and participating because it is not as confusing to get to. And I feel like the longer you've been playing, the more likely you are to figuring out this stuff on your own. But having it a quick access icon or something would definitely help this out here. The other thing too with the missiles, they don't give a ton of advance notice on how long you need before an alliance captures those. So if they would put something like that into the game so you could plan to say you need to have it for a minute or 2 minutes before you actually seize it, they didn't give any of that information beforehand. Okay, so back to the fight for a minute. You can see we are absolutely just overwhelming them right now. We're about to launch a nuke. So I'm going to fast forward to when this missile, nuke, whatever you want to call it, goes off here. It's just so you can see what happens. And again, here is the lag. It's just absolutely insane. So let's jump ahead and see what that nuke looks like. All right, so here we are. We are getting down to the final seconds of this nuke going off. So here you're going to see what this looks like in just about 10 seconds here. There we go. It hit. You get a little screen shake. Didn't do a ton of damage to a lot of bases, and it doesn't instantly teleport a lot of people out. As you can see, a lot of the bases are still there. It did some damage to the ones that are still remaining. So you need to launch multiple missiles if you're trying to clear out a big group of players. And the other thing to notice too is it's not affecting teams from your side of the faction. If you launch it, it's only going to impact the faction you are up against. So you don't have to worry about damaging your team. And again, you're going to need to launch multiple of these. It's not an instant clear. It doesn't have the same large blast radius like you would see in an alliance fight, the Alliance Center fights for the Spice Wars. It's not going to be a huge radius like that, and it's not going to be instant clear like those either. And you're going to produce these. I think there is a limit to how many you can launch. But essentially, if you get control of these, you're going to focus on the whales. You're going to try to get any of the whales that are close to the capital, get them out of there, and make sure you have people ready to jump in and take those spots as soon as you clear those out. So being strategic, launching these, you will see will make a pretty big difference on how quickly you can secure everybody's positions in order to take over the capital. Okay, so jumping ahead here again, you're going to see a lot of the enemy bases have now been cleared out around the capital. We don't have a billion sandstorms going anymore, so it's a lot easier to see who's around and maybe a place you could teleport back into. And all the enemy team is just going to be floating around and trying to take out some of the bases around the outside to get points. So nothing crazy at this point. We pretty much got this thing locked down. And when you zoom out, you can see what alliances own what buildings they've captured, you know, the cannons, the missiles, and then the actual Capitol building itself, and then what percentage the Capitol building is at. So that's pretty nice how they added that, so you can zoom out and clearly see who owns what now. Makes it a little bit easier to figure out who's actually contributing and doing what they were supposed to do. So pretty cool to see. And as you can see, all the fights basically are coming from the out exterior for the enemy team now. They're just trying to hit bases in here to get points. So here I'm just checking who's got what, and it'll tell you what basically how many troops and all that you have in here, what percentages everything is at. So very easy to see all this stuff now and to figure out who owns what again. Now we're at the end of the fight. Pretty much got this thing wrapped up. Only about a minute or so left here. And one thing to remember, when you finish this up, you're going to have gems that spawn in around the contaminated land and in the contaminated land that you can collect after you win. And there are going to be dozens of eggs, gem eggs, that will spawn in the world chat. So make sure you're ready, not only for the gems that spawn that you can collect in here, but be in the world chat. As soon as that clock ticks down on the final second, you're going to see dozens of eggs start populating world chat for the winning team. You can go ahead and collect those. And as far as I know, I don't think there's any limit to those. So try to open as many as you can. You got to be fast though, because they go extremely fast when you have hundreds of players waiting to collect all those. As soon as you see these drop, try to scroll up as fast as you can to get towards the top, because a lot of people are going to start collecting them at the bottom. So if you can scroll as high as you can, start collecting these along the way. And just hope you don't have really bad lag as you're trying to go through here. The longer it takes to click through and this to load up, the faster these are going to go, unfortunately. So try to be fast. Hope you don't have as bad as lag as I did. And good luck to you on this. Once you have gotten as many eggs as you can out of here, now it is time to collect gems. So send your teams out, get the gems. Try not to be in the contaminated land if you can, so you don't have to worry about being attacked through while you sit there and collect the gems. And that is it for this episode. Good luck to everybody in Season 3, and I hope you have fun. I will catch you in the next one. As always, have a great one.